Hello class. Very few players utilize Team Preview well. Most people are impatient and just want to get into the game as quickly as possible. I'm often guilty of this myself. But if you really want to play your best game possible, Team Preview analysis shouldn't be rushed. There's a lot of information to go through and a lot of thinking you need to do just based on seeing your opponent's 6 Pokemon. There are 3 big questions you should ask yourself at Team Preview. 1. What do I have that's good against my opponent? 2. What does my opponent have that's good against me? And 3. What should I lead with? This sounds pretty simple, but there are a surprising amount of pitfalls in these 3 questions. This is best learned through examples, so I'm going to guide you through how I use Team Preview analysis in some recent ladder games from SVOU, the main format for competitive singles. All examples in this video will be from SVOU, but the tips will apply to almost all formats that have Team Preview. In each example, I'll be using the team you currently see in the background footage. It's a specially defensive heavy-duty boots Galarian Slowking, a standard support Landorus, choice specs Kyurem, booster energy Iron Valiant, Libero Cinderace, and Terra Ghost Kingambit. Let's get into example 1. I see right away that I'm facing a hyper-offense team, but I'm not just going to think about leads and get into the battle. Let's go through the questions. Try to follow along and assess with me. First, what do I have that's good against my opponent? Well, Slowking is decent, the only toxic immunity is Glimmora, which will probably die early, so that's good, and Slowking is a great tool against Zamazenta. Landorus looks decent, good for Glimmora and nice for Ceruledge and Zamazenta, and while we're on Landorus, we want to look at hazards as well, since Landorus is my Stealth Rocker. A lot of people forget to consider this. In this matchup, Stealth Rock looks great against my opponent, so I might want to take the opportunity to set those if I get it, but on the other hand, Glimmora sets Stealth Rock and Toxic Spikes early, so it may be best to hold off on setting my own Stealth Rock and just trying to court change that if it does happen. Next, Kyurem looks really threatening, no Draco Meteor resist, and Ceruledge is the only ice resist. Iron Valiant looks really great too, lots of the team is vulnerable to Encore, it outspeeds everything, and Iron Valiant can hit everything super effectively except Wellspring and Glimmora. Cinderace looks okay, offensively it's not great here, but the value of court change is really nice. And lastly, Kingambit, which looks very good against Moltres and Ceruledge, and since I'm Terra Ghost, I could possibly get past Zamazenta and sweep. Now, what does my opponent have that's good against me? So I'm not too worried about Deoxys. I'm expecting it to just be dual screens, but if it's offensive, I have Iron Valiant, which can outspeed, Galarian Slowking, which can switch in, and Kingambit can Sucker Punch, so it's really not a threat, at least offensively. Ceruledge is a bit scary here. I have Kingambit and Landorus, which is good, but if it's Flash Fire, my Cinderace can't touch it, and Bulk Up would be pretty scary. Zamazenta is also quite bad here. I have Galarian Slowking with Toxic and Future Sight, but if the Zamazenta is Terra Steel, my only real way out is Iron Valiant with Encore, so I have to be very aware of that threat. Ogerpon Wellspring is difficult, no real good switch into that. Playing offensively can mitigate how threatening it is, and if it doesn't have Play Rough, Kyurem can switch in once, but it's definitely not easy to handle. Glimmora isn't a big threat. I have Court Change to deal with the hazards, and Landorus and Kyurem can both outspeed and one-hit KO it with ground moves, and Slowking can switch in. And lastly, Moltres is a pretty major threat. It outspeeds Iron Valiant after Agility, and with Terra and Nasty Plot, it can basically destroy my whole team. So this analysis, asking myself what I have that's good against my opponent and what they have that's good against me, has given me a lot of useful information to keep in mind. I know Ceruledge is a threat, so I need to keep Landorus healthy. If I end up in a dire situation where I need to switch something into a Wellspring, Landorus probably isn't the answer unless Ceruledge is already dead or weakened. Moltres is a major threat, so if I get a chance to poison it in exchange for taking a lot of damage on Galarian Slowking, I should take it. Zamazenta with Terra Steel destroys me unless I use my booster energy Encore on Iron Valiant, so until my opponent uses Terra or their Zamazenta is gone, I should be very careful about burning that booster energy. And I know that Cinderace is really only useful for court change, so if Glimmora is dead and hazards are switched, Cinderace is probably a good sack if I need one. Lots of little conclusions like this can be derived from Team Preview analysis, but we still have to consider leads. Now, this is a pretty complicated topic, so I'll link a full video breaking down how to pick a lead in the description, but I'll give the short version here. So first of all, whatever lead you pick should usually be a good lead Pokemon. There are some Pokemon that are just generally a lot better at leading than others. Landorus is a great lead because it has both pivoting moves and entry hazards. Kingambit is generally a bad lead since it has no utility moves, no Supreme Overlord boosts yet, and has no real shot at sweeping when everything on the opponent's team is at full health. Zamazenta is another awful lead since it burns its one-time Dauntless Shield right away, so I can be pretty sure my opponent won't lead with it. On this team that I have, everything except Kingambit and Iron Valiant are decent lead Pokemon. Next, you want to consider what you expect your opponent will lead with. This is a bit complicated, and as I said, I'll get into more detail in the video linked in the description, but basically, your opponent will probably lead with something that's just a generally good lead Pokemon. In this case, my opponent has two probable leads, Glimmora and Deoxys Speed. I know from experience that these are both common hyper offense leads, Glimmora for its hazard setting and Deoxys for hazards and screens. You want to lead with whatever covers most or all of your opponent's most likely leads. Basically, you're making a middle ground play with your lead. In this case, I settle on Galarian Slowking because it does well against Deoxys and Glimmora, but you also want to consider the what if you're wrong scenario. If your opponent leads with something you don't expect, make sure your lead won't put you in a tragic spot. In my case, worst case scenario for Glowking would be Ceruledge, and if that happened, I could have just switched into Landorus. Now, you may have noticed, that analysis took a long time. I explained every single Pokemon to be thorough, but in practice, you won't do this. Once you get more used to analyzing matchups at Team Preview, you'll automatically pick up on what's important. In this matchup, my actual thought process, what was really going through my head, was simply, Moltres is a threat, kill at all costs, Ceruledge is a threat, so keep Lando healthy, probably don't set Stealth Rock if Glimmora is still healthy, so Cinderace can court change, and be careful about the possibility of Terra Steel Zamazenta, so keep Iron Valiant's booster energy. And as for leads, I just saw Glimmora and Deoxys, common HO leads, start with Slowking. That's it. That's all that went into my head, took about 20 seconds. Now, I'm no genius. I can't process this quickly because I'm super smart or anything. It's just because I've been playing competitive Pokemon for nearly 10 years, and specifically because I played a lot of SVOU. If you're less experienced or playing in an unfamiliar metagame, this team preview analysis is bound to take longer, and that's okay. It'll get faster the more you play. I should also note that in OU and many other metagames, your timer will be restored to 2 minutes even if you let the timer run down to 1 second at Team Preview. So Team Preview is a really good time to think about the coming match. Let's do one more example. This time I won't go through every single Pokemon, just the highlights. So right away, once again, I see that I'm facing something in the range of offense to hyper offense. None of my Pokemon stand out as major threats, but my best Pokemon is probably Kyurem since it can one-hit KO everything except Iron Crown. As for what my opponent has that's good against me, the only big threat is Ceruledge, so once again, I can't be throwing away health on Landorus. I also note that Kingambit has tons of obstacles for a potential sweep. Raging Bolt Thunderclap, Great Tusk, Iron Valiant, potential Encore on Wellspring even, and Ceruledge Shadow Sneak if I use Terra Ghost. So this is a super terrible looking matchup for Kingambit, so I'm okay with using it defensively and not preserving its health for a potential sweep. As for leads, I expect triple or maybe even quadruple booster energy, so my opponent really only has 2 decent lead Pokemon, Wellspring and Great Tusk. So to counter both, I pick Kyurem. The lead goes well, and shortly after, we see one of my team preview analysis points come in handy. I let Kingambit, which I determined wasn't likely to sweep, take a major beating early game, preventing more valuable team members from taking damage. I could have thought about what I wanted to switch into offensive threats every time I needed an answer, but that team preview analysis helped me make quicker and better decisions. Team preview analysis not only speeds up decision-making early game, it also prevents just dumb mistakes. Have you ever noticed that you let a Pokemon die for no good reason and later it turned out to be crucial for stopping a sweeper? Or you set Stealth Rock only to defog hazards on both sides a few turns later because you realize that Stealth Rock being up on both sides is a lot worse for your team than your opponent? These are the kinds of mistakes that team preview analysis helps you avoid. Now let's go over common mistakes people make when doing team preview analysis. There are a lot. First of all, if you're a newer player, don't try to incorporate these 3 questions into your play at Team Preview. Just play the game and learn what Pokemon do. If you don't know what typical sets are or how much damage Pokemon do to each other, you can't do Team Preview analysis. It just doesn't work. How are you going to know what your opponent has that's good against you? How are you going to know what you have that's good against your opponent? How are you going to know what their likely leads are? There's nothing wrong with you. You're not dumb. You just don't have enough information. It will come with experience. For now, just try to think about leads. That seems relatively manageable, even though that's pretty difficult as well. Play the game, have fun, and try to learn and understand the metagame. The second big mistake is trying to see how every Pokemon matches up against every other Pokemon. This is a major waste of time. In the game you're watching now, does it matter how my Slowking matches up into Ceruledge? Not really. If that matchup ever happens, I'm switching out, and if I can't switch out, I've lost. If you're looking at a breaker, consider what could switch into it. If you're looking at a sweeper, consider what could stop the sweep. If you're looking at a wall, consider what Pokemon the wall switches into and how healthy it needs to be to do that. Basically, only consider the relevant matchups when you look over the teams. Don't try to look at everything. It's not helpful and just leads to a lot of mental clutter. And once again, if you don't know what those relevant matchups are, that's totally okay. Don't worry about doing this in-depth team preview analysis yet. Just play and get more experience. Next big mistake. Do not conclude that a Pokemon is good just because it matches up well into many of the opponent's Pokemon. This is a particularly common problem people have with breakers. They'll say, oh, Kyurem looks so good, it one-shots 5 Pokemon on their team. Okay, that's great. What if the 6th Pokemon is a Blissey or a Bronzong? Then Kyurem is not so good. It doesn't matter if Kingambit can sweep 5 team members on the opponent's team if their last Pokemon is an Iron Defense Foul Play Mandibuzz. It's not about how many Pokemon something matches up well into, it's about how it performs against the team as a whole. Now, if a wall can defensively stop 5 out of 6 Pokemon in your opponent's team, yeah, that's a great Pokemon in this matchup. But for an offensive Pokemon, if even one thing on your opponent's team hard walls it, that Pokemon is not doing anything, unless that thing that hard walls it dies or gets chipped significantly. That segues well into our 4th big mistake, not reassessing the game state when something significant happens. If you conclude that your Kyurem is not good because your opponent has a Bronzong, but then Bronzong dies, Kyurem is now good. Sounds obvious, but a lot of people get stuck on their team preview assumptions and they don't move on. Something significant happening is more than just a wall dying, though. It can be a physical attacker getting burned, a big threat losing a lot of its health. Even a Pokemon being a different set or having a different item than you expect can majorly change team preview assumptions. Team preview analysis is very helpful for the early game, and some things you conclude, like the hazard situation, or which Pokemon need to be preserved for certain threats. That will probably carry through the entire game, or at least a lot of the game. But a lot of things will change. You basically need to do team preview analysis again, mid-game, every time something significant happens. I've seen people let their best Pokemon on their team die because they concluded it wasn't good at team preview. And then things changed and they didn't adapt. A Kingambit, for example, may look terrible at team preview, but if your opponent lets their Great Tusken Zamazenta die, Kingambit isn't terrible anymore. The next big mistake I want to point out is that people often coddle Pokemon that they determine are good at team preview. If I say that my Kyurem looks really good in a game, I'm not going to save it and hide it in the back, not let it take any damage, and wait for the perfect opportunity to bring it out. I'm going to use it, bring it out as much as possible, and click strong attacks, often even if bringing it in is a little bit risky. Breakers are meant to be used, ideally as early as possible. Same with walls. Don't save health on your walls because they look really good in a matchup and you don't want to let them get hurt because they look so good. Use them. The only exception is really sweepers. If a sweeper looks good, keep it in the back and preserve its health until the right moment to strike comes. Now, the last common mistake I see is that people just put too much faith in their team preview analysis. You don't know your opponent's sets at team preview. Even if you know the team, people can change the sets. Now, you can make educated guesses, and you can cover multiple sets with your choices. In the games where I preserved Landorus to handle my opponent's Ceruledge, I wasn't counting on it being any particular set. Landorus is useful against all Ceruledge. But if you suspect on team preview that your opponent's Iron Valiant is Calm Mind, don't bet your life savings on that. In the game, still make plays that cover the possibility of Swords Dance, or just 4 attacks if you can. Team preview analysis is a useful tool, but it shouldn't rule every decision you make like a god. As you get more information about your opponent's team, assess things again and reconsider your assumptions. Alright, that's all I have for you today. Please consider subscribing and leaving a like if you learned something and or enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please leave those in the comments. I'll do my best to respond to them all. Class dismissed.